Because the thing is, racism isn't just hate. Racism is also like systems. It is individual actions. It is biases. It is thought. It can't be narrowed down just to hate.
Yeah.
The opposite of hate is love,
Mm-hmm.
but racism isn't just hate.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. There's no other way to say how I feel and how I am doing other than a shaky good. But it's fine. We're fine.
Everything, it's fine.
It's fine. In fact, what's great about today is we are recording our first episode of Black History Month.
Yay! Happy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it was Lunar New Year. So
yay! All of the yays. And this is officially the 1 year anniversary of this podcast, right?
Yes! And it's our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, raising all of the roofs, all of the exciting things.
So yay, I have that to be excited about.
Those positive things to focus on.
I need those positive vibes in my life. I need all of that. All of that.
I feel that.
My goodness. So before we get into it, how are you spending this month?
I am trying my very, very best to enjoy every single day of this wonderful month of February. And so I plan on making a post about just Black history on Instagram and Facebook stories. So definitely look out for that. And then I'm just going to try to think of other ways to celebrate this fantastic month. Do you have any plans?
I am going to be cheering you on, resharing literally everything that I can from you because you are amazing. And I am so honored and proud to have you as my podcast host. For Lunar New Year, I had no clue what I was doing, but I did make a funny reel about being adopted on Lunar New Year. And it was basically just someone screaming into the audio, emotional damage, emotional damage, emotional damage the entire time. So it's where I am.
You know, if that's how you celebrate, that's how you celebrate. Who are we to judge?
It's true. I did eat my weight in dumplings, though. So that was one traditional thing that I did.
So, you know, great things happening both ways.
Yeah. So celebrating all of this and talking about, what are we talking about this week? Did I read the right ones? It is reverse racism.
Yes, that is correct.
So that's what we're talking about tonight.
You
excited?
Yeah, I can read the question.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's pull it up. Okay, my question is about the term reverse racism. It seems to me that it's an oxymoron. Isn't racism just racism, whether it's white people hating Black people hating Asian, or Black people hating Latinos, Latinos hating Asians, Asians hating white people, etc. Hate based on skin color, nationality is just hate, and that's racism. Isn't the reverse of racism love? Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Yes, how would you respond to Dear Tracy?
Whenever Tracy mentions the what was it? I'm flipping back now. Whenever it says Black people hating Latinos, Latinos hating Asians, Asians hating white people, etc., it I don't want to just yell at Tracy, but I think Tracy might be confusing colorism with racism, which is a whole other topic in and of itself.
Yes, it is.
it's like it's a whole other monster. And unfortunately, from what I know and what I have read and learned, is that whenever it comes to colorism, that specifically lends itself to be damaging towards anti-Black racism. So like as an Asian woman, I can experience racism, but unfortunately, because of how society works, I will never experience the amount of racism that a Black woman would experience. And that is due to colorism.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about colorism. What really stood out to me was, isn't the reverse of racism love? Which, to me, there's a difference between reverse racism and the opposite of racism. And so the opposite of racism, I don't even know if I'd argue that it's love.
It's anti-racism. That's this podcast.
I do get the thought pattern of like the opposite of racism, because you think of racism as hate. So it would be love. But I don't think it tracks all the way through. I agree. Oh, Tracy.
Because the thing is, racism isn't just hate. Racism is also like systems. It is individual actions. It is biases. It is thought. It can't be narrowed down just to hate.
Yeah.
The opposite of hate is love, but racism isn't just hate.
Yes, I feel like I'm going to take that clip and that's going to be at the beginning of the video. That perfectly sums it up. It's not the same thing.
Yay. To just simplify all that racism is to just the word hate, I think that's doing a very dangerous thing. In that like someone might only classify certain acts as racist acts rather than a whole system as being a racist system.
Which I think we see, because when you hear people talk about, for example, like a cop who does something racist, or you think about like domestic terrorism and people say, oh, that's just like a bad apple, as if like you exclude them, like that's just one person as opposed to the system that really brought them up.
Like the way that racism operates on not only like an individual psychological level, it also operates in the collective psychology and collective mind and sociology and the government and like all of these aspects of our society. It is both a huge deal and also a very like individualized deal as well. And so that's what makes it so hard to combat, because you're sitting there going like, okay, what do I start with?
Yeah. I think that reminds me, this isn't. The next chapter talks, it starts with is it the next chapter that starts with the Ibram Kendi quote?
Kendi's in here somewhere. We love Kendi. I thought the next chapter started with the Malcolm X quote.
Yes. So where is Kendi? Because it goes right into what you just said.
Oh, Kendi was in here whenever it talked about Black people can't be racist. Whenever we're saying that. And for a long time, I operated under the assumption that people of color couldn't be racist because there had to be a power structure. That was how like my brain operated. But the way that the Kendi quote in here put it, said, you have Black people who believe that they can't be racist because they believe that Black people don't have power, and that's blatantly not true. Every single person on earth has the power to resist racist policies and power. We need to recognize that there are Black people who resist it, and there are some who do not. And then you have And then you have Black people, a limited number, who are in policy making decisions to institute or to defend policies that harm Black people. And then Acho goes on to say, so there you have it, one of America's foremost experts on racism, dispelling the belief that Black people can't be racist. But he goes on to point out the key phrase in there is a limited number.
Yeah. I just thought what you said paralleled really well to that. There are multiple levels. There's certainly stuff that we could do, but there are systematic things that we have no like tangible power over, but we elect people who have tangible power over.
It all goes into the whole system of like, I don't want to call it a snowballing system, but like it is true that like whenever individuals elect people into power, and that there is a collective conscious that communicates with people in power that we need more anti-racist policies. That's how we find broad systemic change, but that is hard to do.
For one reason that Emmanuel Acho talks about, am I just talking about the next chapter, voter suppression?
We can blend them. We can blend these chapters. It's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Very true. Voter suppression. Yeah, one of the big reasons why we don't necessarily get the representation. Well, okay, he talks about two things. He talks about voter suppression and the Electoral College, which definitely plays a role in this. First of all, I would like to highlight, and Emmanuel Acho talks about it, how the reason we have the Electoral College is because the powers at be, the racist white men, decided that general Americans didn't have enough knowledge to make an accurate vote of who should be president. So they needed a little help. So they thought highly of their fellow Americans.
Is not good. And for people saying that we need to keep like antiquated things like the filibuster and like the Electoral College, like we have to remember that these were policies that were created back when there were only 13 colonies, and then 200 some odd years later we had a civil war and we completed stealing land from the entire continent, pretty much. So, and now there's like 300 or 330 whatever million people that call themselves Americans. Yeah. So the white racists of those small little colonies did not imagine us where we are right now. I remember seeing a meme that said the founding fathers would be so disappointed in us, and it would say and it went on to say, well, what about the people in California voting for universal healthcare, and the founding fathers up in wherever they are in the afterlife going, the what and the where?
That is fantastic. It's just like things like the filibuster. Well, first of all, our last two Republican candidates were voted in by the Electoral College, not by popular vote. The last two Republican presidents, just let that like sit. And then also, I forgot the second thing, but I feel like the first thing was enough to to let marinate in your mind.
It makes me want to chew on my microphone. I'm not even joking. It just makes me just want to chew on it.
The second thing that I now remember, the filibuster and just like acts like that are only used when we're talking about human rights. Like right now, the filibuster is being used to stall the vote for voter suppression, ironically, in terms they're trying to pass a law that really helps everyone have, their right to vote that you have, because human rights, but because of the filibuster, that's not even getting passed right now. And it's only for things like that. It's never a banking bill. CEOs or rich people who are off and don't really care about their employees, they never have to worry about the filibuster.
Let's talk about this defense budget. I remember a white member of my family. It's my dad. He was telling me about this is just a continuous thing now. It's my dad. He was telling me about the military having to step in to help with vaccine distribution. And I was like, and why is that? I think it's a commentary of how our health system is completely effed up rather than how great our military system is.
Yeah. I think that brings up 2 points. I think like the way we look at things needs to be flipped, just like you just said. We shouldn't be focusing on how helpful our military is. We should be focusing on how awful our health system is. And then 2, it makes me so mad how we use our military and our police force, which is another theme I saw here. Like, you just call, like, for every single thing, we're just going to call our military up, or we're going to, for every tiny thing, like kids selling watermelon or kids selling lemonade in their neighborhood and not having a permit, we're going to call the cops about that. Really?
I was reading an article about New York PD stealing subway fares, and that's a $1,000 fine. If I were to hop a grate, that's a $1,000 fine.
Yeah.
But it talked about literally cops being on camera laughing at subway passengers as they entered through the emergency exits because they're cops.
Yeah, that takes me back to the beginning of the pandemic, where NYPD specifically, they were arresting people for not wearing masks while they were not wearing masks.
Fine. This is fine.
Yeah, it's a mess. I think this is a good time to plug in defund the police, just because we're trying to not, I mean, NYPD has a budget that's over some countries' police and military budget just in one state. And so if we take some of that money out and put it into programs that we know are going to help, they're going to be preventative, they're going to cost less money in the long run, it's just a better outcome for everyone.
Look, I've worked with students that couldn't afford menstruation products at school. Why not give that to students? Because honestly, my period is traumatic enough without not having products to deal with it.
Right.
So how about that? I don't know.
It's definitely a better use of money. I mean, and if you think about, like, okay, you could help a girl going through this struggling time when she has her period, or you can give it to the cops who are historically and continue to be very racist.
Not to mention their budget, like, they're not justifying it. There are police departments that are buying like used military equipment.
Yeah.
There are police departments that own tanks. Why? We saw this already whenever they pulled it out with the Ferguson protests at the beginning of all this. And by the beginning of all this, I mean the time that we actually started capturing it on social media. It's been happening, people. Okay. Like, protests are not new. Black Lives Matter is what it's called now, but like, these issues they're not new issues.
Yeah. It feels like more of an awakening for people who weren't experiencing it. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Maybe not. It's certainly, I mean, absolutely amplifying what you said is not new. And I remember reading an article that in Black-owned bookstores, business was booming, at least at the beginning of the pandemic, because people wanted to support Black businesses. They wanted to read about different issues of racism that have been going on. And the I believe the owner of the shop, they were like, I mean, you know, we're happy that business is booming, but we're sad that it took this for business to start booming. You know, we should have been supported this entire time.
Exactly. Which brings us to another comment that was in this book. One of the questions was, why is it racist to ask for a White History Month?
This is gonna take a deep breath.
I want that, like, a screenshot of your face just now, and I want that on a sticker.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Every month is White History Month. Every month of every year of every decade is White History Month.
Like,
that's why.
Look at your history books. Look at the fact that we are not being allowed to teach real history right now, and that's up for debate in literal school boards right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one quote that I loved from Emmanuel Acho, he was like, if people are asking, he was talking specifically about Black Lives Matter and people responding with White Lives Matter, but I think it applies to this too. If you need, in response to Black History Month, a White History Month, that just means you don't think we're defaulting to white enough, which is crazy. Black history, is that what you said? Black history? Yes, because you said White History Month. Okay, Black history, like this month is out of necessity because we don't teach Black history. Like families individually do their thing for sure, but like as a society, no. And so like, there's no need to teach white history. We know all the white people who are in like all of our textbooks, who paved the way, who did all these great things, who we celebrate, who all have days, even though some of them shouldn't. There's no need. Every day is White History Month.
I was just thinking, and I was pretty good in school. Yeah, I was pretty good in school. History was one of my favorite subjects. I was just thinking, I cannot name more than 10 historical figures in Black history. I can't do it.
And do they all have something to do with slavery and or like abolitionists and or human rights?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's another problem. Like Black history is not all in response to slavery.
Like, I don't want to embarrass myself on a podcast that's distributed. We hit 500, widely distributed. We hit 500 downloads last month. So I'm like, wahoo. But also, I'm not going to even attempt to name who I can name because I know that the school system, A, failed me, and B, I haven't done nearly enough of my part of my own research.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. Like, of course, we have to do our own work. And I also would like hesitate just because he talks about a constitution test when we're talking about voter suppression and how that was required for some people to be able to vote, which was very racist because then people couldn't vote. And I was just thinking about how hard the constitution test is. And I was like, oh, what if we did like some questions on the podcast? And then I was like, no.
Ask me any like major historical Asian figures too. I could even less of those than Black figures, historical figures. Like I know that New Jersey and I want to say California just now passed bills to be able to put an Asian history unit in their textbooks.
Really?
The year is 2022.
Yeah.
The year is 2022, y'all.
It's a perfect example, of how history, how it's currently taught is failing. And it's in no way accurate.
Yep. So if anyone comes at us in the DMs asking about White History Month, I will probably I will ask for your address and I'll send a book to you.
Yeah.
That is what I will do.
And just following up on your previous comment about prominent Asian American figures, and like the lack of teaching that in our school system. Asian American history and Asian history is huge in the making of this country.
It is, and it's fine. It's totally fine. We're doing fine, and by fine, we're not doing fine, people.
No, I think this podcast has made it very clear we are not doing okay, like in any of these areas.
No,
all of them need exponential growth, like yesterday.
Like, I had a friend in college that used to talk about how like humanity needed a reset. Well, guess what? The pandemic happened, and over 800 million people worldwide have died, or some like insane number like that. And first of all, like the fact that like that's happened and we're still like, you know, going and doing our thing, not great. Yeah, not great. And then second of all, if that was a moment for humanity to wake up and say we need a reset, we didn't wake up.
We did not. No, for some reason, like this society has a really hard time learning from the past, learning from history.
We're fine. This is I mean, I know it's a continual theme with our discussions, but also like the amount that the billionaire class has made off of the pandemic versus literal like global recession, depression. I don't know economics. I didn't take it. How was that for you?
Oh, lucky you. That's all I have to say about that. I'm glad I'm done with economics.
See, that's why I didn't do policy.
Yeah, you were wise.
We went off on a train there. So just like, yeah, White History Month. No, we have White History Eternity, unfortunately. It's where we are. For like other, like, I don't even think that like, because we have Women's History Month. That's March, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. And so if any like male identifying people come at me, no.
No, it's every day is Men's History Month.
Yep.
It's the same principle.
You know, it's always the, like, for me personally, the people in my life, I'm so sorry, Dad, I love you, that are asking about why isn't there a Men's History Month or a White History Month are the straight cisgendered white males.
Yeah, it almost feels like there's this desire to be oppressed, this like desire to be a part of what people are talking about, which is like, it's not fun. I don't like be happy that they don't have to have the history, like they don't have to have a month to really celebrate your history, that you could do it all the time. That's how it should be.
Yeah, that's like going back to cultural appropriation. Like that is also like something that psychologically I do not understand that people do that. Do you remember that one woman who was a white woman who literally like masqueraded as a Black woman and was like head of her chapter of the NAACP or something?
Oh, I remember her.
What?
It was like, oh my gosh.
When people say that racism is dead and then they're still pulling that crap.
And I think we could circle this back into like one of the original conversations we had when we were talking about how you talk about how there's like a bad apple, as opposed to recognizing the system that went into this woman literally pretending to be Black. Like, sure, that doesn't happen a lot, but that came from somewhere.
And the fact that she felt so entitled and safe doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, people. That is just... I'm looking her up right now because I think there was like not a book deal, but there was some sort of story in there, and I was just like, no, don't give her money for this. Don't. No. Yeah, she was a professor.
Okay, I thought so, but I didn't want to misspeak.
She went to Howard. I'm about to throw my phone out a window.
What was her name?
I said it, Rachel Dolezal.
That's crazy.
I got it correctly whenever I was like, yeah, I think her name was Rachel Dolezal, and I was like, oh yeah, I just misspelled it in Google, but it's fine. Like, this is stressing me out so much. I literally just gave myself hives.
Oh my gosh.
Or like, I've just been stressed this week, so to get hives is probably understandable at this point for me.
Definitely. A stressful conversation on top of a stressful week certainly does not help.
I mean, like, come on. She only got her master's at Howard, but at the same time, why did she go to Howard?
On a side note, I've been to Howard. I think I'm wearing a shirt. Yeah, a sweatshirt.
Oh my gosh, you're actually wearing a
shirt. It's a beautiful campus, super fun. Loved it.
Like, that is awesome. I've never been to the campus. I think that's so interesting how these campuses are able to be these spaces where people are just able to just, it's, I don't know how to put it into words, but like, it's like whenever people were asking why we had affinity spaces specifically for different identity groups at Columbia whenever we were doing grad school and stuff like that. And like why we specifically had those spaces for different identity groups. Well, it's still the same concept of why these history months are needed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, like, to my experience, Black Caucus at Columbia changed my life. It really changed my perspective. Before then, I hadn't really been in a Black-centered academic space. And it was so impactful. So yeah, I mean, people can disagree all they want, but the benefits they're so clear. So
that reminds me, I've had conversations with people who are like, okay, so if AAPI Student Caucus and Black Caucus exist, like, they're excluding white students. That's racist against white students.
Of course they said that.
It was a white person that asked that. But I was just like, no! Here's the thing. As students of color, we were in a predominantly white space. Higher education is, I don't want to say it's like crawling with white people, but like, it's like, there's white people everywhere. They're like the most likely to get accepted into higher education, the most likely to get the scholarships. People were saying that, what was it? There was data that actually said that white women were the most like benefited by affirmative action.
Who was not the intended target at all. I mean, I'm glad white women are benefiting, but I wish like all other demographics could also benefit.
It brings it back to the idea that certain waves of feminism exclude women of color. and why we need intersectional feminism of all of these different identities, and that you can't have feminism without being anti-racist.
Yes.
Because
Go ahead.
Because white feminism is just white supremacy still.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to, I think, a little bit of what Black Lives Matter dealt with, when you really had to be intentional with all Black lives, like every single type of Black life. If you're going to say Black Lives Matter, you have to mean all Black lives. You can't exclude based on like which ones you identify with and which ones you don't. And it's the same with the feminism movement. I mean, I think it's like very widespread that it was definitely hijacked by white women, and feminism for white women is very different from feminism for literally every other demographic.
So yeah, exactly what you said.
I will plug for the Feminists. I think that's just their Instagram name, and they post fantastic content, and it's from like, and they repost from so many different sources, so you don't just see like one group of feminists, you see stuff from all different types of people. So I will definitely link their page in the description because they are deserving of many follows.
I actually just befriended one of their editors who is a Chinese adoptee.
What?
I know.
That's fantastic. See, I'm not shocked because they do such great content, of course.
I saw they had posted something, one of her statements regarding Justice Barrett's comments about adoption being a replacement for abortion, and the adoptee community are not doing so hot with that right now. We don't like being used as anti-abortion props. We don't like being used as props to begin with, because that's how a lot of us have been used throughout our lives. We've been used as success stories, props. In like Christian circles, I know people have like compared adoption to salvation. It's a fun time. You just feel used. So anyways, I was very excited that Annie went on to such a platform such as feminism or feminist. I don't remember what the handle was at this point.
I'm gonna link it.
That they went on there and just went, yeah, no, this is not, as an adoptee, this is how I'm feeling. And I was like, yes, adoptee identity. And then I messaged her and I was just like, hey, and now we're friends.
That's fantastic. I do love, first of all, this story. It's amazing. And I also love how social media, I mean, I've got such a love-hate relationship with social media. And I say that, and this is going to go on social media, but what I love about it is that you can connect with people that you possibly would never be able to connect to. I mean, it opens like this whole world for collaboration. It's so cool.
It's so great. You get to interact with new ideas. You get to meet new people that you might not have come across from. But the dark side of it is, if you mess with that algorithm, Instagram is owned by Facebook. Facebook changed its name to Meta. That doesn't change the fact that it was probably responsible for the January 6th riots. So the algorithms are racist. We've discussed racist algorithms and how the tech industry is also quite whitewashed.
I mean, yeah, you could think about like the facial software that is inherently racist. You could talk about, he talks about that, I think, earlier. And then we could talk about how, I believe it was TikTok, that you couldn't use certain hashtags relating to equity and justice. Yeah, no, there's certainly a conversation that has to be had about social media and its complicity with racism and all of the isms.
A trend, it's not a trend, it's awful. It's called shadow banning for Instagram accounts. It's where they literally flag certain accounts to where they don't show up on people's feeds. Like, you can be following someone and their material just doesn't show up based on the algorithm.
Yeah, and like who is Instagram to determine like what's appropriate and what's not. And it's not even because I remember Twitter was talking about how they try to do their best, and I do love Twitter, but you know, they have problems. They try their best to make sure people feel safe and inclusive. And I think this was after they deleted Donald Trump's Twitter account. And then the representatives like Hanamar and AOC and Ayanna Pressley, they were like, what? We get threats all the time. And they certainly are there and get reposted all the time. So like, it's so ingenuine.
Like you could literally, like, exactly what you were saying, like you could literally fill a book with the amount of threats that those representatives have gotten. And it's just
yeah. So social media, love hate. I stand by that.
It's great for spreading ideas, but also it does its best to protect straight white men, like most of the systems in our reality.
Yeah. Yeah. The patriarchy.
It's fine. Ooh, do you want to read Hood Feminism next?
Ooh, yeah, I'd be down. I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's good. I listened to it on audiobooks, but I would love to read it.
Yes, I would be down.
Ooh, yeah. So we didn't actually get any questions from my end of social media this week. Did you get any questions?
All
right.
Not this week, but we will try again next week because it's so much fun getting questions.
Yeah, I like that. I think I'm gonna keep doing it on Tuesdays on my Instagrams, but full disclosure, we are recording this on a Wednesday.
Yes, we are. Things happen.
My dishwasher broke and wouldn't shut up, so sorry, y'all. But anyways, it was so good to see you.
Yes, thank you for having me per usual. This is so much fun.
Yes, it is. Oh my goodness. So ready for next week's questions before we sign off?
The first question is good. So I am very excited about that. I don't know about the second question.
Okay. So we talked about impactful contributions, talked about voter suppression. We covered a lot tonight. All right. Question for next week. America claims to have abolished slavery generations ago, but with the lack of public investment in Black communities directly contributing to high prison populations and prisons often benefiting from free labor of their inmates, did we ever truly abolish slave labor, or has the 13th Amendment simply provided prison owners with a loophole?
Isn't that a fantastic question? I need to know that person.
Oh my goodness. Yes, they read their research. They did that. And then here is another one from Lisa. Why do you think many African American communities are plagued with poverty, crime, and also lack the presence of a father figure in the home? Is this all because of oppression? Oh, Lisa.
Oh my God. I like the first question better.
Yeah, and then this one just makes me mad. I know they're probably asking it with a good from a good place, but also like that question. The amount of racism in that question itself.
Oh, Lisa.
We're fine. It's fine. We will talk about it next week before I go on a rant right now and get more.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.